And welcome in to episode 7 of the Heart of Hearts podcast here on the Heart of Texas Behavioral Health Network's YouTube channel. I'm your host, Vince Erickson. I am the Director of Community and Governmental Relations for the Heart of Texas Behavioral Health Network, also known as HOTBHN. Today, a mental health item of concern for a large portion of all of our people, not only in Central Texas, not only nationwide, but really probably worldwide. And we are talking about teen dating violence and abuse. Front and center here on the Heart of Hearts podcast on the Heart of Texas YouTube channel, Heart of Texas Behavioral Health Network's YouTube channel, and also front and center an issue for teens and their parents. Front and center this month with National Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. Right now, let's dive in for a discussion of how we are addressing this to create better lives for the people of our 6-county service area. And no one better to do that than welcoming back our own Katie Chadwell. Katie, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure to have you. Katie is a child and adolescent behavioral health therapist for the Heart of Texas Behavioral Health Network's Clara Center for Families, which is the provider of child and adolescent behavioral health services for the Heart of Texas Behavioral Health Network. Katie, once again, welcome.
Yeah,
all right.
I'm glad to be here.
And we're glad to have you. Dive right in your professional experience. What kinds of impact can dating violence for teens, what kind of impact can that have on our teens?
Sure. So it can affect them in a whole lot of ways. It can affect them socially because a lot of times when teen dating violence or domestic violence, anything like that starts happening, teens will start to withdraw on their own because they feel like they're going through something that nobody understands, that, adults, they think adults won't understand or that they'll freak out. And so they often just back away. And then, a common thing that happens too in those relationships is whoever their partner is will try to isolate them before things even get bad. And so they'll try and pull them away from their supports and guilt them into only spending time with them. And so it really affects them socially, but it also affects their self-esteem because very often there's things like gaslighting that happen. And so these teens really start to believe that this is their fault and this is all they deserve and that they've done something to cause this. They're not enough. They're not good enough. And, obviously that leads to depression, anxiety, and in some cases PTSD.
And, it's hard enough being a teen. It wasn't that long ago. Well, you weren't a teen that long ago. For me, it doesn't seem like that long ago that I was a teen, but it's hard enough being a teen without that being on top of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely adds so many more struggles when their brains are so quickly developing and, hormones are changing and things like that. This absolutely is a hard barrier to overcome.
Okay, now for parents and caregivers, again, I will tell you this.
Sure.
I have a 17-year-old daughter.
Right.
I have a 13-year-old son, raising
Sure.
2 teenagers right now. What are some... for parents and caregivers, what are some signs to look for that our teens and parents and caregivers that our teens may be exhibiting that this may be going on?
Right. So I think there's a lot of ways that teens can show it, and some are more overt and some are more quiet, little small changes. The biggest would probably be if you notice they're not hanging out with friends as much, if you notice they're always on their phone talking to this person or hanging out with their partner every single day, feeling like they're canceling other plans, maybe even with the family, to hang out with this person. If they become overly upset, if you tell them that they cannot hang out with that person or speak to that person for a little bit, those would be definite signs. And then also changes in sleep patterns. So if they're oversleeping, undersleeping, also same with eating. If they're overeating, undereating, those are signs as well. And then just isolation, which can be a hard one to catch because a lot of teenagers isolate on their own because they're teenagers and parents are embarrassing. But I think if you notice more isolation than usual, or if they're really shut down when you're trying to talk to them, that would be a clue that something could be wrong.
Katie, that's positively wonderful. And for those of us, again, a large part of our audience, parents and caregivers, would really like to know what kind of things can they do despite the fact that parents are parents. It's not peers, it's parents. But at the same time as the parents and caregivers, it puts a large onus on our responsibility there.
Absolutely. So I think a lot of it is doing the preventative work, is doing the work up front, is talking about abuse, talking about unhealthy relationships, talking about emotional abuse, because a lot of times when I speak with teenagers, they're not getting hit, but their boyfriend chooses what they wear, or what makeup they can put on, or their girlfriend tells them which friends they can hang out with. And it's subtle things like that I think a lot of teenagers really struggle identifying as abuse. And, a lot of times, again, it's the excuses like, well, they were mad, or they care about me, they want to protect me. And so I think if we're doing some of that preventative work as caregivers, we're really setting our kids up to at least have the knowledge base as they're starting to enter these dating relationships, because, teenagers, dating is a new scene. That's something that they haven't really had experience with. And so it's real easy for them to think that something is normal when it's not. So I think definitely talking to parents, talking to caregivers, having those really honest conversations and not trying to sugarcoat it for kids. Give them examples, tell them the truth of what happens and what it can lead to. And I think just really opening that door for kids, saying, if you ever aren't sure, if something ever is happening to you, there's no judgment. I need you to come to me and let's talk it out. Let's figure it out together. And really providing that open environment for kids is huge. And then if parents notice something is wrong, trying to approach it with kids, but being really careful not to do it from a place of judgment or a place of punishment, because they will shut down and they will not tell you the truth. But if you come, I'm concerned, not you've done something wrong, then kids are more likely to open up. And if they're not opening up to you, then considering getting some help, like a counselor at school or with us at the Clara Center.
And that's wonderful advice. And I would imagine also the trauma-informed care approach to this of, if something what has happened to you,
Right.
not what's wrong with you.
Right. What have you, making sure not to say, well, what did you do to cause this? Why did you let this happen? Why did you let this go on? How could you not see that this was bad or unhealthy? Those are all very shaming questions, and kids will shut down. Adults will shut down too, for that matter, but especially teenagers who are already being so brave and courageous to tell you the truth. We need to make sure we celebrate that bravery and courage and say, I know whenever my clients tell me those types of things, it's like, I know that was really hard, and you just showed so much strength in that moment by telling me, and I'm really honored that you trusted me enough to let me have that information, and let's see if we can figure it out together. So it's not, hey, I'm gonna fix this for you, or you need to fix this. It's like, let's chip away at this together. Let's come up with something.
Katie Chadwell, she is a child and adolescent therapist for the Heart of Texas Behavioral Health Network's Clara Center for Families. Katie, this is the second time you've been here with us. Thank you so much for your time once again. We're talking about Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, which is going on for the entire month of February. And again, let's look at teen dating violence, not just on the local level here of what you help our kids with, our friendly and helpful creating better lives, but let's talk about it on a national level. And the recent CDC study that we referenced in a release we sent out to media and stakeholders, and that I think it's 1 in 12 teens, and that's little over 8%, will experience abuse from their dating partners.
Yeah, so I know that statistic may seem shockingly high for some people, but I would actually say that statistic is very, very low. I actually would say that it's much, much higher than that, because when we're looking at these statistics and these studies, it's just based on kids that have reported it to people who have cared, who have then reported it and done something about it. And so there's so many areas that something could go wrong to have it not reported, because a good portion of these kids don't report it until years down the line, and if ever. Some never report it. Sometimes they report it to an adult who does not care or doesn't know what to do, so nothing goes any further. Maybe they tell a parent or a teacher. They don't know what to do about it, so it just sits there and it never gets reported any further. And so I would say with these statistics, my guess is it would be a whole lot higher than that if we were actually looking at what's going on.
And that is concerning, which is why it is really good that there is a National Awareness Month for this, to not only observe it during February, but also carry it beyond to make this year long.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Having these conversations, especially these hard and uncomfortable ones, are the ones that are most important to have. And I think parents avoid these topics because it's uncomfortable for them to think that their children could be victim to something like this. And so they avoid the conversation because they don't want to think about it, or they don't want to put something in their kids' heads, their teenagers' heads. And, like I said, those hard conversations have to happen. It's the best way is to prevent it is by talking about it honestly beforehand. Sure. So if you're in a relationship, I think a lot of times it's really hard to know if something is abuse. And a lot of times, again, there's so much manipulation in this as well, where, they might say, this didn't feel right. And their partner's like, you're just being dramatic. This is nothing. Why do you always have to do this? And so I think a lot of times for teenagers, they just get very confused, and there's a lot of noise in their head. There's a lot of thoughts, a lot of feelings, and they're just at war with each other. And so I would say for a teenager, honestly, if you are feeling concerned about your relationship or having that noise in your head, if you're having that battle in your head where maybe you think one thing and then you think something else, or you think you're being dramatic, err on the side of caution and ask somebody that you trust. I mean, even if you start with a friend, friends will usually tell you, hey, that's not right. You might want to tell an adult. And I think ultimately that's what teenagers need to do, is find an adult they feel safe with, whether it is their caregivers, or a teacher or principal, school counselor, one of the Clara Center staff, a neighbor, a grandma, whoever it is. I think just talking it out with them, someone you really trust to take you seriously.
When we're talking about mental health, there's a difference between mental health and mental illness.
Absolutely.
But whenever you have some of the signs that there may be, I want to call it mental impairment, but talking about mental impairment, is it run across the board? Depression, anxiety, withdrawal, etc.? Does it run across the gamut of that? So folks know what to look for?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think every kid is different. So with some teenagers, they might actually go the opposite. They might get more aggressive, because if they're in a relationship that is abusive or aggressive, they have a sense of lost power and control. And so we as humans really rely on power and control to feel safe. And so if we feel like we've lost our power and control on what we can wear, what we can eat, who we can talk to, who we can spend time with, we're sometimes going to look for other ways to get that power and control. So sometimes that presents as eating disorders. Sometimes that presents as aggression. So a kid who's never fought in their life might start fighting, or might start being extremely defiant at home, whereas others might completely withdraw. And so really the best advice is saying anything that is out of the norm for your teenager, because teenagers, yes, they're ever evolving. Yes, they're ever changing. They're one person one week, and they're exploring their identity, trying to figure out who they are. So there's someone different the next week. But you as the caregiver know, you as the teacher know, if as a counselor, if someone is walking in different. And so anything that is really out of the norm for your kiddo is something that might indicate something is wrong.
Katie Chadwell, a child and adolescent therapist for the Clara Center for Families, the child and adolescent behavioral health provider for the Heart of Texas Behavioral Health Network. Katie, this is your chance to talk about this work that you do for Clara Center for Families. Better known, we call it KCF. So tell us all about KCF and what the whole gamut of what KCF does to create better lives for our children and families.
Yes, so KCF does a lot, and I am almost certain I'm probably going to forget some of the things, because we are expanding at a very rapid pace to try to help the community as much as we can.
Some of the best, robust programs really that there is in the state of Texas.
I sure think so. I mean, I don't know, I guess I'm a little biased, but I think so. So we see kiddos that are ages 3 to 18, and we also have a transition age youth program that serves that transition age from, the program actually starts at 16 up to, I think, 26. And so we really help throughout that process of becoming an adult, because becoming an adult is hard and very rarely do we get the chance to learn the skills that these kiddos are getting to learn. We have psychiatrists, so if kiddos need medication, they can see one of our psychiatrists. We have counseling services. We have family partner services. So what that is caregivers who are going through this. People don't tend to understand mental health in the community. It's hard. It's a conversation we're starting, but I think we still have such a long way to go that a lot of times these caregivers feel very isolated. And so what a family partner is someone who has been there, someone who has lived it with their own children, and they're not there to fix the problems or provide counseling. They're just there to say, like, you're not alone, and let me sit with you in this. And it's one of the most powerful services I actually think we offer. We also have case management, which helps families get connected to different resources in the community. We've got school-based programs in a lot of schools throughout our six county catchment area.
Yes, ma'am. Seven, and we have it in McLennan, also in Hill and Bosque counties.
Yep, and it's ever expanding. Yes. So that's why it's hard to keep up with the list, because they're always adding. But it's a really great program. So how that works is case managers and counselors see kiddos on the school campus instead of having them come to the office like the traditional counseling works. We have a gang prevention program. We have a youth crisis respite house. We've got homeless services for youth experiencing homelessness. We really just run the gamut. Any kind of need. I think that's one thing about KCF is when we see a need, we've got a director who is willing to let us do whatever to fill that need and to fix it.
And Ron Kimball is one fabulous human being.
Yes, no, for sure. I've come to him with a whole lot of ideas, and I don't think he's ever told me no. So, and we also do a lot of things like community trainings. We present for a lot of our community partners on mental health topics, and we go to a lot of community fairs. We connect with, the housing department and the police department and the sheriff's department, and we really try to connect with as many people as we can, because we know that, solving a problem isn't going to come just from us. It comes from everybody in the community.
And that's why, Katie Chadwell, it's fabulous to have you here. It's fabulous the work that KCF does to create that safe space for the conversation surrounding mental health. Because so many young people now, it's a conversation that it's been stigma for a long time. But now our younger populations, they're embracing it. And we want to make sure they have that safe space for that. And you're a huge part of that.
Thank you.
Katie, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Come back and see us again, will you?
Always.
All right, Katie Chadwell, thank you so much. All right, speaking of February, again, this is National Teen Dating Awareness Month. Teen dating violence. Yes, that's a mouthful right there. But that is going on for the remainder of February, and can you believe we're only 2 days away from March of 2024, almost there to the third month of the year. And speaking of March is another awareness month, Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. You may not know, but we are also the local Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Authority for our six-county area, also known as the LIDDA, L-I-D-D-A. So get ready for a compelling and consistent content surrounding Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, including some special guests here on the Heart of Hearts podcast in episode 8. Here on the Heart of Texas Behavioral Health Network's YouTube channel. And again, that episode will drop 2 weeks from today. So please make sure you subscribe to this channel if you have not already. Our promise is to upload at least one new video per week on the YouTube page and at least two YouTube shorts per week. So folks, hit that subscribe button right now. And when we are talking about the Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, the theme this year is opportunities. A world of opportunities. And we're going to be making sure that we have all kinds of content about that throughout the month of March. And of course, we're going to keep remembering, let's see, Katie, if I can get this right, Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month.
You did it.
for the remainder of February, you betcha. All kinds of things here that we're glad to talk about here on the Heart of Hearts podcast on the YouTube channel for the Heart of Texas Behavioral Health Network. And we want to make sure that you have content not only here on the podcast, but on the YouTube channel, but on all of our different social medias. And we promise compelling and consistent stories across all of our platforms. They're all right there, quick and easy to search. Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Once again, content right there consistently to where we are filling those gaps in the community to make the mental health conversation a good one, a safe one, and the IDD, the intellectual and developmental disabilities conversation as well, to help end the stigma surrounding the conversation about mental health and mental illness and intellectual and developmental disabilities. Once again, we're going to drop our next podcast 2 weeks from today. You'll want to be sure to tune in for that. Until then, I'm Vince Erickson here for the Heart of Texas Behavioral Health Network's Heart of Hearts podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. And for Katie Chadwell, we bid you adieu. And remember, be kind to your mind.